Well, thank you all for joining me and taking part in this artist talk. I really just wanted to kind of have a chance for all the artists to talk to each other and get to know. I mean, you already know one another, but talk about your work with how it relates to the show, and then maybe just yourself as an artist and what brought you to FPAC. But we'll kind of go through all these questions. So we can start. On my screen, I have Steve, Kelly, and CJ. So if you, we can just kind of go down the line. So if you want to start, Steve, talk a little bit about yourself as an artist and how long you've been an artist.
Okay. Well, I started taking photographs, long time ago, like 45 years or so. And that was all film back then, of course. And then I let it go for a while. And then back in the 90s, got interested when digital photography started to take off, and then took it very seriously around 2006 or so. And then even more seriously from about 2012 on. So long time in some regards, and my techniques are constantly changing as I learn more post-production techniques and experiment with compositing images and the like.
Awesome. And Kelly?
Sure. So it's kind of hard to say how long I've been an artist. I think I've kind of been interested in art and making art, for as long as I can remember. Since I was a little kid, I kind of always knew that was something that I loved to do. Went to undergrad for art at BU, and that's when I really kind of solidified what I was doing. Kind of came to learn a lot more, and then did my grad program at museum school. So I'm mostly based in painting. I sort of call it portrait based, so it's not always traditional portraiture. I'm also, I sew a lot, and I've worked in costuming, so a lot of costuming, fabrics, textiles, that kind of stuff comes into my painting and kind of influences it a lot.
That's awesome. And CJ?
I've been painting for most of my life. I've always wanted to be an artist, but did not go to school for it. That was not something that was really encouraged. But when I graduated BU, but in writing and literature, I decided to become an artist and have been painting pretty much self-taught ever since. So I really started painting seriously when I was 15.
Wow.
And that was more than 40 years ago.
Oh, that's amazing. And what brought you all, this is a question for everyone, but what brought you to the show? Why were you interested in applying to the new feature show?
Well, for me, there were a number of reasons. I love FPAC shows, but certainly the times that were so heavily weighing on us that we're all thinking about the present and the future. I call it the before, the now, and the after. So I enjoy expressing the after through abstract composites. I photograph the now, on the street, doing more traditional street photography. So this was a nice complement to imagine, where are we going? How will this all unfold? And the piece that I have in the show is a city of sorts, and I say of sorts because it actually started out as ice on a window screen, and this was over the winter. And I said, well, this is interesting. This kind of looks like lights in a skyscraper. And I started playing with it and expanding it, and the next thing I know, I was sculpting an entire city with buildings. And when I got to the top there, it was missing something. And I said, this is an evolutionary process. That's why I call the series Metrovolution. And I appended an image that I had shot from the Amtrak train leaving Penn Station about 3 years ago. And I said, someday I'm going to use that image. And it fit in just perfectly. So the piece itself is Metrovolution Winter. It's cold, it's blue. The moon was actually imported from Utah during a trip I took there with my son last year, and I felt really good about it. And it fit in with this whole idea of this the world has been stung by this, and there will eventually be this thawing out, and some sort of normality will return, but at different levels. So different levels of the image have different levels of being inchoate or well-formed. So you get into the top, and we have, okay, some semblance of normality here.
Mm-hmm.
So this appealed to me both personally and artistically.
Awesome. And so every part of your piece is a photograph that you've taken yourself. It wasn't like you didn't pull from the internet or?
No, all of my composite work is images that I've created myself. The screen image, the city itself is around 10 shots of different parts of the window screen with the ice and water in it. Mm-hmm. So it's that plus the top layering with the city and the moon. It's about 12 or so images that have been blended together. Okay, I like to talk about breaking, bending, and breaking, bending, and blending, a phrase that neuroscientist David Eagleman talks about as being the underlying principles of creative work. And this particular piece in New Futures, I think, exemplifies how I do that to convey a message.
Mm-hmm. And one thing, when I saw your piece, it struck me almost like this is after, or like this is almost during the pandemic, where cities are kind of not as relevant, or I don't want to say not relevant, but people aren't flocking to cities because that's where all the people are and they don't want to get sick. And I almost saw it as like a city that's kind of slowly turning off. And
well, that's interesting. You could look at it as slowly turning off or slowly thawing out. Mm. And there is certainly a flight from the city, but who knows? I think there will be a return to the city in some fashion. Might be a very different city. So you can read both into there. It's both a freezing and a thawing.
Awesome. It's really poetic.
Thank you.
Kelly, what brought you to the New Future show?
Sure. So it was actually sort of a motivation for me. When the pandemic hit, well, I'd say before that, I work a full-time job and all the time I'm just wishing I had more time to paint. Pandemic hits, I get laid off and I can't paint. Like I'm just not doing anything. I just, no inspiration, no motivation, don't really know what to do with myself. I started making face masks. I have a ton of fabric here and fabrics that I just collect and really didn't have anything to do with it. So I just started using them and making face masks, putting the word out, who can I send them to? Healthcare workers, people who know people who need them, and was doing that. So my studio kind of turned into this little factory, fabric everywhere. And then I went back to some drawing, and I had these photos that I had taken of some kids on a trampoline that I knew at some point I'd be using them for something, but didn't really know what. But I kind of just liked, the image of taking these, isolating the kids out of the trampoline, just what they look like kind of in the air. And sort of started just drawing them. And then with the fabrics being so much around me, I started incorporating those into the drawings. And I sort of really thought about what am I doing? And I thought, I'm looking at them and seeing these figures are isolated, which is exactly how I'm feeling right now. And without thinking too much about it, I've wrapped them in these fabrics that I'm using so much right now. And so without knowing that I'd been working on something that was related to our whole situation right now, the more I thought about it, I saw how I was. And I always think about fabrics as having a domestic quality. And so thinking of this being isolated and being at home and really needing to rely on the comfort of home or of people who are close to you, around you, to support you and keep you lifted. So the idea of this show kind of helped me put together what I was doing and helped me understand the meaning behind what I was working on.
Yeah, that's great. And some of the your portraits are very beautiful, and they're almost a little sad. You would see, there's one I like of a little baby and it's kind of upside down, and your brain kind of puts in it that the adult or the parent is sort of holding it up and playing with the baby, but the parent's missing, and then I think that is a big fear in the pandemic of just, unfortunately people passing away and like leaving their families behind. So it almost, when I see your images, I get that. That's like how
Hmm.
I interpret it. And I don't know, is that a bad reading of it, or it was?
No, I mean, I kind of like that. Not that I like things to be sad and anything, but I kind of like that. It they are about, for me, kind of like taking away a lot and leaving it up to the imagination. It is just an isolated figure. They're dangling. There's not anything holding them, but there obviously was at some point. So it's just removing them from kind of a reality, focusing in on that isolated figure and just sort of what that means.
Mm-hmm. And even like anytime I see like a little kid alone, I'm always like, where's the parent? So like, see,
Yeah.
you in your portraits or like in your illustrations with like children isolated, I'm just like, oh wait, where's their parent? And I feel that like almost panic or just
Yeah.
concern. Yeah.
Hmm.
But I'm always worried about little kids and um but yeah, that's great. And CJ, what brought you to the show?
Well, I think the title "New Futures" is something that always appeals to me even before this. I mean, it's something we always think about. And the piece Twilight Flight, which is the one that I was actually painting during the pandemic, I had begun before, but I had only just kind of sketched that wedge of land in a twilight sky. And I originally wanted to have a lot of little houses floating away on that chunk of land.
It's okay.
But as the sense of isolation really creeped in, I just put one house in, one small house with the trees kind of dominating that little chunk of landscape. I've always kind of explored the duality of the beauty and the horror that is life. And that has been kind of, as Spinal Tap would say, turned up to 11 these days. So I don't want to do work that's depressing, but at the same time, you have to kind of acknowledge the ruin that everything ends up in while you celebrate the beauty and the splendor that is all around us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people have felt during this time that heightened appreciation of nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty much all they've been able to do is go out for walks in the woods and stuff, or peek into neighbors' windows after dark, which you also see in the painting.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
And your piece, you was interesting too. I think that's almost kind of a thought that people have, like they see their friends or like they see like just a picture of someone on vacation. They're just like, oh, take me with you, like take me away from here.
Right. And that's something that's so interesting about the series, which I started in 2005. I never expected the Trees Leaving series to keep going and going. But the reactions from viewers at the beginning, they found it really sad. And then once 2016 came, there was this flip, and I kept hearing those words, take me with you, when they would see the tree leaving into a sky. And it just became as much as a yearning for escape rather than just an ecological statement about climate change and things like that. It's become increasingly personal and historical.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I didn't plan this, but it seems like each of your pieces kind of deal with the same sort of sentiments of like duality, isolation, almost like man-made versus like nature, like
Exactly.
yeah. And that's a lot of like what we're dealing with in this pandemic, where we're trying to figure out, okay, what comes next after this? Like, how will my life change, or like how will things change for artists or a lot of professions? Like most office jobs are closing, restaurants are struggling, so there's just this like unsure of like what am I going to do next, or what's going to happen after this.
Right. Yeah, it's surreal times. And as a surreal painter, it's like, wow, where do I go from here? I don't want to make work that's going to depress people. I want to make work that uplifts people. But I don't want to sugarcoat anything either.
Yeah.
I think there's also an important documentary element to everything that we're doing here, that, you know, if you look back to other crises, global crises, they've spawned all kinds of new art forms and new forms of literature. Whole genres and motifs have come out of that. So hopefully there's an end in sight to this, but people will need to look back and to see how are artists reacting. You know, what have we captured on the street? What are we writing about? So I think that this show is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Anytime, any like particular point in history, people always look at what was being made at that time, like what was being written about during that time, and they learn more and more about it. Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's like I feel emotional now. I'm going to talk a little bit about FPAC. So I was wondering, like, how long each of you have been with FPAC, and like what brought you to the community.
I have been 2 years, 3 years, either 2 or 3, but relative newbie, and I'd always known about it. And the word on the street is that the art in FPAC is always superb, and it's just they have great shows. So whenever it was that I signed up 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whichever it was, with that knowledge that I'd be able to you know, experience more great art and maybe even participate in it. So FPAC is, I think that the quality of the art is fantastic. The gallery space is wonderful, and I look forward to participating more.
That's great. And you, Kelly?
Yeah, so I first became aware of FPAC back in undergrad because of open studios. I think my professors kind of, you know, told us go to open studios, and so I'd come down here with a like wide-eyed student, just amazed at the stuff we'd see here and the live workspaces and all that. And then my very first exhibit or show that I had anything in that was not related to school was here in the FPAC gallery. It was, they did a like 25 artists under the age of 25, and someone organized it and you submit. And so that was like my first experience outside of school. And then in 2006, I moved here and got a place in the artist building. So that's when I officially joined FPAC and have been here ever since.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. And it's really exciting that Open Studios is kind of like your first introduction to FPAC. I think, at least like I've only been with the organization for almost a year or over a year now, and Open Studios has like always been the big thing that I hear about. So I think it's so exciting that has kind of been like your big thing, and like your
yeah.
And for you, CJ?
I've been a member for almost 5 years, and I was introduced to it probably because I had friends that lived there and got into a couple of shows there. And Christina Lanzel, I know, was involved in the lending program, and she got me involved in the lending program. And just the more exposure I've had to the area and to the people there and to the shows, I've just liked all parts of it. I think the quality is high, the community is strong, and I like how they kind of spread out across the seaport. It makes a real community presence. I feel it has a long reach, and again, the quality of the artists that have been involved has been pretty high from what I've seen. But I've known a lot of people and continue to know people who live there. Some of them really good friends.
That's great. And has this become like a community for all of you? Like, have you felt welcomed, or there's be where you can't, be where to say no, I hate it here. But I was just curious, like, has this been like a welcoming community for all of you?
Oh, I think very much so at the events that I've gone to and the interaction for the couple shows that I've been in. And, you know, I like the support that I see on social media as we put pieces up. So I would have to say, absolutely.
Nice. And Kelly?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it's been a good some good opportunities, you know. And I remember when I first moved in here, it was different. I think some of that has gone, unfortunately, just because of all the development and people needing to leave. It was a little more, you knew where people were and who they were. But I think the new directions that FPAC is kind of expanding to, or we'll just take it in a new direction that can be really great.
Yeah, yeah, we're really excited for some more development of art in the area. And what about you, CJ?
Well, I've had a great time when I've been there. I've volunteered for a couple of stints of gallery sitting and things, and open studios. I think I was there for a day in the gallery. And that's it's always fun. It's wonderful to meet the other artists and the people that come to look at the art from other parts of the community. And of course, the little coffee bar is very convenient.
On that note, I have to say that the food and beverages served during the open studio and also at the events is fantastic.
That's one thing we'll miss this year. All the food is really good.
I think there is such a range of art and artists, of personalities and work. So I find it very expansive. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have one vision. It doesn't have one attitude. Mm-hmm. It really has an amazingly expressive range of people doing all kinds of work, of different ages too.
Yeah.
And that makes it feel even more inclusive, because you can always find something that you resonate with, or another artist there that you resonate with.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't ask this question for the last group, but I'm curious, how do you think life as an artist will change in Boston, or what do you think what do you think art in Boston will move towards? And this is for everybody.
Steve, you first.
Oh, I was thinking it's time for you to be first, CJ.
I thought we were continuing this order throughout.
We don't have to. It's just one.
No, we don't have to.
So you want to know about the new futures of artists in Boston?
or like, yeah, how will art expand in Boston? I know that's like such a wide question, but.
Well, I think it will expand in its diversity a lot, because I think there's such a cry for that. Mm-hmm. And I think just in the couple of months since George Floyd and everything else, we've seen a lot more inclusiveness in various organizations, shows, even virtual theater and things like that. And I expect that will continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really hope that's a really good point. And I've noticed that change too, and I think it's very exciting.
Well, and I think too that, being in pandemic mode here when everything has gone virtual, mm-hmm. that there's more happening in general in the world in terms of art shows, but we're also starting to see more localized, events like Area Code, okay? And, I think that as more people are spending more time at screens, that they're going to be looking for more art, new art, and in the after, okay, that is going to translate back into some kind of a physical presence as galleries come back online and people feel comfortable going there. I don't think it's going to happen quite, in the near future, but certainly the landscape is changing in terms of available real estate, and there's going to be things popping up there. So, and literally, I think we're going to see a lot of pop-up shows. So that's my take.
Yeah, a lot of outdoor pop-up shows.
I sort of wonder what will happen to not so much visual arts, so we'll see what happens with that, but like the performing arts, theater, dance, that kind of thing. Like, I worry, like, do we get to go back and see that anytime soon? Or, is that all going to go online, which is just so different that it's something I think we'll have to see. I don't have an answer, but it's something that I definitely think about.
That's a good point too, like, because I know that theater's been affected, and for things like Hamilton coming out, and just people seeing like how amazing it is, and like wanting to be able to have a chance to view it live, but there's that somberness of like, oh, I don't even know if that's possible. And yeah, the just live shows and live performances, I do worry about that. But like, we as artists, we adapt, we like always find a way, and that's something that I'm really excited for, and like it really encourages me.
I think persistence is going to be very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of an artist's nature.
Mm-hmm.
They're used to going up against the odds. That's part of its life. And you find your way through, you create new communities.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love things to be much less virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping we will really get there someday. It's been months since I was at a reception and getting kissed on the cheek by 100 people, and now the thought of that is frightening. And I don't want to be frightened by that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We do have to wrap up, so if there are any other ending like thoughts or questions that you want to bring up.
Well,
I think I saw the show.
Oh, yeah, I know. How'd you like it?
I did get to go down to Atlantic Wharf and see the show, and I think it is quite beautiful.
Mm-hmm. That looks really nice.
You got to see it too?
Yeah.
Great,
Mm-hmm.
great. Yeah, I think it is wonderful. It's kind of has a sparse quality because it's not overhung, and also because the space around it is kind of empty.
Yeah.
That it has a real intensity to it, and it matches the times.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else?
Thanks for putting the show together. I think it did a little bit to kind of, like I said, motivate me and keep me going. So I was really glad that was an opportunity.
I second that. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
Like, it wouldn't have happened without all of you.
And the fact that it's an actual show.
Yeah.
Not just happening virtually.
Very special.
It really gives a one of those lights at the end of the tunnel that we're all grasping for.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all. It was. I won't say it wasn't hard to put together. It was just, I was so worried about people's health, and just having to like figure out how to coordinate actually installing it without anything happening. So like, but I appreciate everyone's tolerance, and like everyone's like just excitedness over the show, and like wanting to be part of something like that that's like not virtual. I think just seeing a show live is so much better than not seeing it live. But no, I thank you all. Like, I feel like I didn't do anything.
Well, you made it very easy. The drop off and everything, so
yes,
simple.
You did. It was very well done. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Two thumbs up.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and just like sharing like your art and your history with us. I really hope that we can talk more again in person in the future.
In the after, we will be there.
In the after, yeah.